Whoa. Okay. Recording in progress. Great. All right. We're going.
We're official.
Um, Hello, folks. Thanks for registering for this first hour of power. I'm super excited about this little feature that I'm doing. This is actually Liza's idea. So she does this with her clients. And when we got to talking over coffee one day, she was telling me about this, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. How come I'm not doing that? so, so I decided to give it a shot, and perfect to have Liza be our first person. So, you guys know me. I don't need to do any introductions for me, so I will turn it over to Liza, and she can give her introduction.
All right. Well, I've known Michelle, I think, since the mid 90s.
Oh yeah.
She actually used to live on my street in Boise. So that's pretty cool. And I recently moved back here about a year and a half ago. I am originally a Boise resident since 1983. Took a 14-year hiatus living in Europe and in California. I raced bikes for 17 years as a professional, retired in 2021. In 2022, won my age group at the Ironman World Championship. So I've done about 20 Ironman. I have done 20 Ironmans, and I haven't counted how many 70.3s, but at least over a dozen. I have been a master swim coach, a cycling regional team manager, and now I'm pretty much focused on my coaching business out of Boise. I have most of my clients in the Bay Area and then some spread out throughout the US and a couple overseas. So I originally, speaking of the topic tonight, started focusing a little bit more on my indoor training in 2018. Our team was sponsored by Zwift Women's Race League. They shipped us all these fancy trainers and said, okay, learn how to use these. We're trying to promote this training platform. Half of my teammates actually really hated it. My mom, interestingly enough, heard a little bit about what I was doing, and I talked to Kristen Armstrong, and she's like, it's a game changer. In fact, in the winter, it's a life changer. So my mom said, well, I need a life changer. Get me one of those trainers. So the first time I was setting up the software and syncing everything, I thought, I'm going to last 10 minutes. This is going to be super boring. And all of a sudden, it was snowing outside, and I was on that thing for 3 hours. I had a
Wow.
3 hour ride outside, and I said, forget it. I want to learn how to use this. And I kind of fell in love with it, which I was very shocked. So fast forward to now, obviously the pandemic was a big time that a lot of people did get trainers and started using the different software for riding indoors. And we're going to go over tonight a little bit. We've got a number of questions, but I really, aside from using multiple different trainers and using it in different ways for cycling specific for triathlon, and also now I coach a class once a week online. Yeah, it's one of the things that obviously makes living in Boise in the winter very easy to stay fit on the bike. So with that, we can get the questions going, and then we can obviously add on people as I answer them and have other ones.
And can I just jump in real quick, Liza?
Yeah.
And just say, if you guys have questions, please don't hesitate. Don't feel like you have to, you don't have to wait like till the end. You can just either type them into the chat there, or you can just, raise your little hand and do your video, and we'll get you. So don't feel like you have to sit there in silence.
I'll go ahead and start with question one, I believe was from Cherie. And kind of funny, Cherie, I actually logged in as you this evening on accident.
Oh.
I just found the Zoom link and some emails, and Michelle looks at me and she's like, you're logged in not as you. So I was trying to pretend to be you. Anyway.
I was totally confused too.
Yeah.
Like, wait, Cherie.
What are you doing here? So mental toughness, that's a fantastic question on long indoor training rides. The first thing that I would look into is, normally my rides might be 2.5 up to 4 hours, but my coach shortens them all to be under 2 hours. So we try to get in a lot more quality. The intervals can vary, but if I'm doing multiple days on the trainer, we're not doing long stuff because you don't have any coasting time. You're not stopping at stoplights type thing. And you're going to get a pretty good workout in that short period of time. But I would also look at, there's other ways of just breaking down. Like I have athletes, the same thing as I coach them, say, well, you know what? If you need to cut that workout in half to 40 minutes, that's fine. That's plenty of time on the trainer. Um, Music, snacks, and movies. So a number of those things, like what's interesting about that is when I give an athlete a certain workout, they go, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm going to watch The Godfather for that." Or they literally know the time that they're going to be on the trainer and the movie that they're going to pick. So some people have it down to science. But I'd also ask you, are you using a platform? Because of the 7 that I've listed, there are a couple that are free or that have 14-day trials. And that's a really good chance to kind of determine, I've had teammates that are happy staring at a black screen that has a line of here's the power you have to hit. I'm somebody that I don't like video games, but I like the gaming effect of Zwift, getting points, seeing other people from other countries. When I want to practice my Italian, I jump into an Italian ride and then I type in stuff and that helps me practice my language skills. And there's other ones. Full Gas is a great example. They have courses that have beautiful landscapes. You're climbing the Stelvio, you're doing multiple things overseas. And so I think those can also be entertaining and those will help pass the time by faster. I
Yes.
know.
So let me ask a question. So I haven't ever used a platform like that. And to show my ignorance, I don't think I really know how they work. So all I have so far is I just have a trainer that I mount my bike on and I have my bike computer. So I'm only looking at RPMs and heart rate, and trying to stay in the zone for a certain number of minutes. But I don't, how does that work, the platforms?
So you can actually use something just as simple as a cadence sensor. So if you've got the RPMs and you get a cadence sensor that has Bluetooth.
Oh yeah, I have a cadence sensor.
Okay. If it's one with Bluetooth, that Bluetooth can connect to the software system. I
Oh.
think on almost all of those when you upload them. And then, because I just set up an athlete the other day, and then it shows you, pedaling. You're not going to get power, but you're going to use heart rate and speed and cadence as your guide. And your little avatar will take off.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So is that like an app on your phone? Is it like, how do you,
Great
how does
question.
this work? Yeah, how does
You
this work?
can use, you can use your iPad, you can use a phone, you can use your laptop. Some people hook it up to their TV and they'll have it broadcast on Apple TV. So as long as like for me with my laptop, I have an Ant Plus and Bluetooth in the laptop. So if it's newer than like 2000, usually 2015 or 16, your laptop, then it should work no problem with the Bluetooth. And does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting to try because I do just watch TV, like I just have a show that's really pretty and not, doesn't take a lot of mental capacity, but yeah, it's sometimes when you stare down like a 2 hour indoor ride, your brain just kind of starts to panic a
Yeah.
little because you're just stuck there. Whereas outside, you're like, whatever, la la la.
Right, right. And I'll also add another app in this chat here. So as an example, when I teach, so I teach Tuesday nights, and this is another good example. The trainer I have is relatively lightweight and you can travel with it. You can actually take it as a carry-on in a plane. We decided tomorrow our schedule is going to work out that we're going to go out of town and stay with some friends. So I'm like, well, I teach, but I can take the trainer, my laptop, as long as I have Wi-Fi. If not, I can use my phone as a a hotspot, but and then I'll plug my headphones into my phone, and then I'll chat with my athletes while we're on a course on Zwift via Discord. So Discord is like you know, it's a gaming app that a lot of gamers use while they're doing that through the computer. But a lot of the cycling, groups will use this Discord app. They get on and you can, chat. You can do like Zoom, video. I do know another coaching group uses Zoom as well, but it just depends. Everyone's got something different. Yeah. And I can move on to question 2 if that helps, if that answers. 3, good. Okay. So question 2 is actually in a way related to question 1, staying motivated, the challenges when you don't see your speed. And I'd kind of go back to those recommendations of, having smaller targets to start out, having, something else that's going to entertain you during that time to keep you motivated, movies, snacks, chatting with your friends. And as well, if you just have speed, you should be able to see that, if you've got a cadence sensor and you're on one of these platforms, you should be able to see your speed as well. And I guess one of the things that's fun is, not with all the platforms, but with Zwift and the drafting effect, when it just is multiplied so much greater online. When you're drafting someone, you're working at quite a lower level. When you're in the group and just maintaining that group, you really have to moderate your speed a little more specifically, if that makes sense. So I'd say question 2 is very similar in the answers of question 1. And I think that was from someone named Laura. And Laura, did you have anything else with that?
No, I'm interested to see if one of these does create a speed, right? Because
They all do.
it is, right? When you're out there on the road and you're like, okay, I'm keeping 15, I'm keeping 17, I'm keeping, that kind of thing. That's really motivating. But I don't know. I struggle with power, right? And I'm like, I'm working so hard, but really, if I were out on the road, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. And actually, I think what's interesting to this, so like today when I got on, I had a set workout, but I started with a group of like 500 people. And what a lot of coaches have found, it's actually sometimes can be the opposite. It's hard to hold back. And I was working harder and I was like, okay, I got to back it off. My coach is not going to be happy. and I just kept kind of pushing it because I'm like, oh, I just want to stay with this group or this guy because I'm going to get further. So, I definitely, I highly recommend, you guys to go and try that in the next week or 2, because you might find something that's a game changer, a life changer. So it's pretty motivating.
That's a great point though about ego, Liza. it's like a lot of times, that's the downfall, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Group training, I think, is really hard because that's when you start to compare and you start to feel like you have to keep up, and pretty soon you're not doing your training program anymore. You're doing this person's over here. So that is
Exactly
a challenge.
right. It's a challenge. And like what Michelle said, I've talked to a couple different coaches and it's gone both ways. There are some athletes that really like it for an easy zone 2. They can do a more controlled environment on the trainer. And some of those athletes they rely on outside for their social and kind of intensity type thing. And I think in this example today was like, pushing myself kind of this group environment where I'm normally pretty good at, holding back. And sometimes outside, I might ride a little too easy or, coast a little bit more, but then get me in a group environment inside and I'm like pushing it. So everyone's going to be different in the scenario. Yeah. Let's go on to question 3. Michelle, if you know who asked this, the first question I have on the question is when they're talking about their basic stand for their bike. And I'm wondering if that's a trainer, if it's rollers, and
David asked that question. So
Okay.
David, you can jump in if you have additional
Here
clarification.
somewhere. I'm not connected, apparently.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a basic trainer. I put my bike on. It has a little bit of a adjustment for tension to make it more difficult. And I have that set up as high as it'll go. And then for any additional resistance, you use the gearing on the bike. But I'm wondering if a different setup, something a little more high tech, would produce any better results.
Okay, so this is a great question. Now, in terms of performance and results, you're still getting fit. You know, you're riding, you've got resistance on the bike, but the different trainers that I've listed, you know, I have what's called a dumb trainer. Both my rollers and my trainer are dumb, meaning the power, and when I see my power output, that comes through my bike. And I prefer not to have a direct drive trainer or a flywheel because I like having my wheels kind of going on a roller, and it also doesn't wear out the tire. So when you get a trainer with the flywheel, you're going to want to have what's called a trainer tire. Okay. And you can look at some of those different trainers, and those are probably like $600 or less. And they're going to have, you're not going to have to deal with that. You'll be able to shift on your bike, but there's no like resistance, you know, up or down type thing, because it's you and, you know, the smart and the flywheel in it. The direct drive, that basically you take off that rear wheel and it goes into either a cassette or the trainer that's the Zwift hub. That one actually has just one cassette. And then it maneuvers in terms of the difference of the terrain with the software and that kind of thing. So you're not wearing out a tire, and it's just the cassette in the direct drive. So that's probably the closest to sort of a real feel. And you know, it's going to be you're a lot more locked in. Whereas rollers or the feedback sports trainer, the back of my bike, you know, or my whole bike on rollers, it actually moves a little bit. So you can get as fancy as you want, you know, or you can get kind of just like the Wahoo Kicker Snap. And again, they're all great trainers, and you're going to have, you know, a good experience, and it's going to get specific into the speed, the power, and the watts. What else can I say about that? Questions on that question?
I was just gonna say, I
Oh,
think, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if does a different trainer produce any different results for the same person? In other words, am I going to experience either a more improvement in my riding, strengthening my legs, endurance, or is it more up to the rider, the time you're putting in, and your heart rate that determines the outcome of your workout?
Yeah, the trainer is not going to make a difference in that. You're still going to get, you know, fit and everything from it, but you're not going to, one of them is not going to give you, I guess, a performance advantage. It's more a, I guess you could say, like driving a school bus versus driving a Porsche, you know?
Okay.
If you want to go down bogus faster, that school bus is going to take a while, right? The Porsche is going to be a lot more comfortable.
So
Make
would
sense?
you,
Okay.
go
Thank
ahead.
you.
If there's anything else.
No, I think it answered my questions. Thank you.
I was just gonna ask though, kind of a follow-on to that, Liza. Would you say that rollers would have potentially an additional performance enhancement from the technique component at all? Or is that too subtle?
No, absolutely. So that's a great question, Michelle. I started with an athlete in December. His first year on a bike, triathlete, 16. We did some riding outside, and I looked at her dad and I said, I'm going to send her home with rollers today. A lot of upper body movement, just a few things that basically if you do that on your rollers, you're going to crash. Okay. So use of your core, your shoulders, you have a lot more overall body. And that's actually the one drawback from time spent on a trainer is when you're kind of stationary like that, the core, the glutes, those muscles kind of tend to, I wouldn't say go to sleep, but they're just not being activated like they are outside. So if you're interested in learning how to ride rollers, get comfortable on them, they're a huge advantage. They're just technical. You have to set them up like in a doorway or somewhere that you can kind of lean. I've been riding them for a couple decades, so I can sit up without hands, and I can't really maybe eat a plate of spaghetti, which is sort of the true test. But definitely I do a little bit of texting or typing, but not, where I can't just reach down and put one or two hands on the bars. But in terms of engagement of other muscles and probably an overall like better workout, I would say yes. But here's the other big drawback. If you've got sprints or anything probably over 250 watts, it's pretty challenging. Like when I've done hard watt workouts, I just go back to my other stationary trainer. So great question.
Why are the sprints harder to do on the rollers? Is it just because there's just too much resistance, or?
No, they're not. But if you're like, I can stand and I can be out of the saddle, but if you're going full gas and full focused, it's more like when you stop. Because so here's the thing, if you stop pedaling on rollers, you tip over, right? You have to keep going. It's like a single speed type thing. And so as soon as you've, revved up over 100 RPMs, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and then stopped, I mean, my shoulders always kind of relax. And then as soon as that, handlebars are moving too much. Yeah. But look, Australians and Europeans, all they ride is rollers, so they can sprint on them. No problem.
I would think that the focus part would be hard too, because when you're done with a sprint, you kind of have this mental sort of like,
Yes.
and you can't really do that on rollers.
You cannot. You cannot. In fact, I will tell you in 2018 or 2019, when I was new to the platform, I'm on the rollers and I'm in this apartment and I'm riding along and, I'm looking at the screen to what the ride leader's saying. And what they used to often do is they'd say, okay, we're going to regroup at the top of this climb. And because I wasn't on a regular trainer where you can just stop pedaling, they said, okay, stop pedaling, we're stopping. And of course, my little avatar shot through this group and they're like, you've got to stop. And so I read that, I stopped, and I just like tipped right over. Like, I can't stop on rollers. Like, what am I supposed to do, So I was like, this is not.
Well, I will say, I mean, if anybody out there is, I mean, maybe some of you are already doing rollers, but if you're thinking about trying them, be really careful, because I know one of my athletes a couple of years ago decided he was going to go get on rollers, and then he promptly dislocated his shoulder and
Oh, no.
had a huge injury that took him out for the season. So just be super careful with them.
Yeah.
They're awesome, but they're also really hard to start on.
Yeah, definitely.
I was gonna say, Michelle, I'm from Europe, and I am definitely never gonna go on any rollers anytime. So
Nice.
That's because you're
so when
smart.
you do, I try. So when you do power workout, and if you have a smart trainer, and if you're using Swift, you can put that to that ERG mode, and then that will typically, keep you in the power zones that it's set for. Is it better to do that, or is it better to not use that function?
Great question. So this came up with some coaches that I was listening to, and with my athletes, I can see when they use the erg mode. In erg mode, it's a great feature. I think, like with Michelle said, if you don't want to be 100% focused and you kind of want that trainer to set the power steps for you, and you can just kind of follow along. But at some point, you have to get used to holding that power out on the road. right? And in your own training. So I've tried to do a couple workouts years ago when I had the smart trainer on erg mode, and they were 30-second efforts, like 30 on, 30 off. And it's a horrible thing on erg mode, because by the time I would like barely get on top of that gear to do, let's say it was 280 watts, then I would be recovering. And so my RPMs were like 15.
Yes.
Because it's forcing me up and then down and up and down in a short period of time. Very small intervals. It's not a good thing to have on erg mode. So yeah, that's a great question. I'm not a big fan in general, and that's also why I have dumb trainers. My athletes, if they like erg mode, great. But for, again, short intervals, I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't use it. Does that help?
And you're absolutely right about that piece. If you want to kind of zone out and just sit there, then it's great. But yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Should we go on to question 4?
And I think, Beth, that was you, right? On that question on 4? I think it was.
Okay, well, I'll read it. Well, yeah.
Okay, I don't know it.
The lighter person
Where
question.
do you see your questions,
Yeah, I
Michelle?
can't
Have you
see 'em.
posted them or?
Oh, you
In
guys
the
can't see them, those either? Oh, okay, all right.
No.
I'll
No.
repost them. All right. Okay, it's the
So yeah,
lighter person.
question is in the meeting chat. And the lighter person struggling with power and ways to work on this for the flats. So first of all, physiology. There's usually only so much we can change. If you are a lighter and a small person, you're going to be a great climber. Now, to kind of work on finding additional power, I definitely recommend not only doing possible strength work in a gym or with a group fitness program, but additionally on the bike, low RPM work, building that strength. And then I also find that, like for me, I respond really well to short efforts of 1 or 2 minutes at a high power, combined with, let's say, a 5x4 minute workout at a low RPM. So you can do work in the gym, you can do work on the bike and try to increase, your muscle. But, there's some of us, like, I was never going to be a pure climber, and I was never going to be a pure sprinter. I'm someone that can definitely ride for 6 hours in various zones. And so depending upon your own personal physiology, that can be a great goal to work on. But I would take advantage of being light and doing climbs.
Yeah, I do climb really well. I just really struggle on the flat sometimes to push it a little bit more. And it's frustrating. Like I just finished Ironman California and I did well, but like
right.
just looking at it, it's like, I wish I could have done better, but it's such a flat course. I couldn't take advantage of any hills. So I was just
Yeah.
kind of looking at future races and if there was a way to improve that. I do spend 3 days a week in the gym as well, working on leg strength and stuff too. So I just
Good
didn't know if I was missing something.
No, and that's, I was out there the last 2 years, and that's a great course. But I think you have to look at a course like that, just differently, just have a different approach. And, I would focus more, on just, executing a strong bike, but really executing a strong run. Because
Yeah.
you're a small person, you're going to just float through that run. And the bike, it is what it is. And maybe there's a hillier course next year that, that would work with your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'll go on to number 5. Michelle's question, I believe. Pros and cons, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit already, to different indoor trainers. So I came up with a list of 4 trainers, and I also was going to mention, it's going to depend if you want to use erg mode or not. It's going to depend on, are you traveling with that trainer? Some of these direct drive trainers, they're 64 pounds. They're very heavy. You set them up, and you'll leave them. Put your bike on it, and I would not suggest, you know, moving that thing around. Again, rollers, we talked about that. Those often fold up. They're probably something you can find that's the least expensive. They do have a few pairs, I didn't list them, that do have power and resistance. And so, Michelle, here's a great answer to your question. I had lost actually I actually have smart rollers, and I had a power cord to it. I lost it a few years ago, hadn't used it, found it the other day, and I thought, oh, great. I'm going to hook this up to Zwift. I plug in the resistance, and I'm doing this rolly course, and well, one, I couldn't take my hands off the bars, and two, it drove me crazy. Like, I'd sort of like feel like I was balanced, and all of a sudden I'm like going hard, and then so yeah, I put that cable back in the box, and I'm using it the dumb way. And so, back to kind of the original question, it's great when I know in Zwift came out with the Zwift Hub one, priced really well, includes a year of membership. There's videos that'll walk you through putting that trainer together. So they're better and better in terms of like the tech aspect and making it easy to set the trainer up and hooking it to your laptop or phone. So that's also a big component there. I looked at two of the different trainers. There's a Tax Neo, really nice trainer. It's a relatively lighter direct drive, but it's pricey, and it really does the same thing as some of the other trainers. So again, you can get as fancy as you want, but the price is coming down in some of these trainers and direct drive. And the Wahoo Kicker Snap is also a really popular one. That's the one my mom has. Doesn't, she leaves it set up. It's not that heavy. As long as I go over and pump the tire up in her bike, she figures out how to connect it to her iPad, and she's going. So yeah, so take a look at that list. I think I only listed 4 or 5, but hopefully that gives you an idea of sort of the differences. Again, price, weight, do you need a trainer tire? I also, if someone here is interested, I was talking to my tech guy, and he's got a Wahoo Kicker for $300, and he's got a tire he'll throw in, and he sent me all the specs, and I said I'd pass it on to this group if someone's interested. Questions on that, different trainers?
I just have a little bit of a follow-up, which is not specifically on a trainer, but it's just about the concept. And I'm not exactly sure how to ask this, but so do you have a preference, Liza, in terms of okay, so let's say the weather's not snow and ice outside, but it's cold. Okay. It's like, I don't know, let's say it's like 40 degrees. Yeah. Would your preference be for athletes to be on a trainer or to be outside? So if there's an option to go outside, is it better to be outside, or is that trainer going to do just as good? I'm not even sure if that's a good way to ask that, but
That's a good question. That's a good question. I wonder about that sometimes myself.
Yeah.
Fantastic question. So I'm going to answer this first from my coach's perspective. He likes you to get outside if you can, pretty much no matter what. There's enough clothing and gear, get outside on your bike. Now, from my coach's perspective, if it's someone working and they're riding at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. here or California, wherever, and they're relatively time crunched, getting a flat, having a mechanical, being too far from home, I'd say do the trainer, right? Now, specific workout, I also think being outside and being able to figure out where your terrain is. Again, let's take Boise as an example. I've got like a 4 or 5 minute climb. If I want a 20-minute climb, it's going up to Bogus. I'm not going to do that until after April. Okay. So I'm going to try to simulate something and do it on my trainer. Again, this climate, I have a lot of good 2 and 3 hour routes that I can ride pretty steady. I would go outside if it's like 45 and above. But again, if it's something where, and sometimes in the summer actually, riding an hour inside just to not have to think about dodging people on the green belt or stopping or, goat heads, I'll just do that. So leading up to my Ironman, I probably did three or four rides on a trainer. Often, like I said, is the easy one, and often is the day of or the day before I'm traveling, because I don't want to have any risk, or I don't really want to have to think about it. So I plan pretty well ahead in terms of, nutrition, flat repair. So I got a number of flats this summer, and giving myself enough time so that I can ride outside. Does that help? Oh, this is a great question. Yes, I have, especially when it's too cold. Sorry. The question is, have I split the time on the trainer and outside? I have workouts actually that are listed like that. It's a 2-hour ride. It's an hour inside, an hour outside. Now, if you do it that way and you get really sweaty, completely change and completely dry off. You don't have to shower, but do not wear a wet sports bra. Do not wear a wet pair of socks. You're going to be miserable. I learned that early on. So dry off, 10, 15 minutes in between. That's okay. And then do an hour outside. And what's really nice about that is, most of us are into cycling because we would like to be outside. So you get a little bit of that fresh air. The air quality is good. Go for it. I like it.
Now that was I'm glad that you started talking a little bit about your own sort of setup and how you make those decisions about whether to ride indoors or out. I think those are really good things to kind of think through. I mean, I guess I hadn't even thought about like flats, but that's the thing around here for sure. So
Sure.
it's like, if I get a flat, do I actually have time to change that?
Yeah.
In my little space that I'm going to be cycling in.
Right.
So no, that's really good. That's good stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. What else? Questions? Bring it on.
Anyone?
We can talk general training stuff, like what's your favorite nutrition and such.
Yeah, I can answer a few of those questions. So I'm going to be a little biased on the nutrition aspects because I still have a couple sponsors and supporters, but I've specifically had 3 out of 4 of them for, it's going to be 8 years. So, in terms of energy bars, JoJ bars, JoJe, and JoJ, their headquarters are out of Utah, but it's actually a former teammate of mine that started these bars in her kitchen in Southern California. And they are slightly higher in fat. I've been able to eat them in multiple Ironmans, no problem. And I eat them in training. There's only one problem. They are good enough that if you set that box in reach, you may just start snacking on them, because my teammate put on 6 pounds the first 2 months she made these bars. And I found this to sort of be an issue the first couple months we were sponsored. So they are that good. So JoJ bars, and I'll write that in there too. I think there's a code I think you can get for 20% off. And then nutrition. Okay, so a lot of my nutrition, I've been fortunate enough to be friends with Dr. Stacy Sims since 2007, 2008. And I went over to New Zealand last year to visit her. She's been living overseas for about 7, 8 years now. And I've followed the hydration and drink mixes that she started with, Osmo, Scratch, and then the last company that she worked with, NBS Nutrition, who is based out of North Carolina. They still have the recipes. And the owner there, Clifton, and his wife have fantastic, the recovery and recovery plus specific for women, and then hydration, and then the preload. So that's that product again. I think that's been since 2015 actually that I've been working with them, and I'm gonna have to I'll type this in here because there are and the question usually comes, what does NBS stand for? No bullshit. So anyways, I have a discount on that as well, but the recipes are same as what Dr. Sims, her last company that she worked with. And First Endurance, so I started working with them last year. They're also a hydration company. I told them I would only come on board as long as I could continue my relationship with Breakthrough Nutrition NBS. They have maybe one different, they have vitamins, which I've been using since 2009. So that was one reason I partnered with them. They have a great multivitamin, a halo vitamin that's a anti-inflammatory. And they have one that I've used a very long time, Optogen. And Optogen contains ashwagandha and Rhodiola rosea. And those are two adaptogens that are great for women in menopause. So, you know, that was an immediate fit for me with the vitamins. They have an okay, you know, recovery drink, and they have, hang on, I'm going to grab it, a hydration mix that myself, we'll just grab all these. They've changed it. It is a high carbohydrate drink mix, which if you follow Dr. Stacey Sims, she's not a fan of. So I kind of half it. 30 grams is still a lot though. It has 60 per serving. And then this is the NBS recovery drink mix. I also like the packaging for both these companies because they don't use plastic. So those are my, I think my three, and First Endurance also has gels. But those are my three main companies that I use for nutrition. And then I, you know, to mix it up, order a few things off the feed here and there. And I eat a lot of bananas and Rice Krispie treats. There you go.
You make your own Rice Krispie treats? Or just
No, I get them at Flying
just
It. I'm lazy.
you.
I should.
And what was the vitamin you said for that Dr. Sims recommends for menopausal women? Because I fit into that category as well.
So adaptogens. Ooh.
Adaptogens. Okay.
Yeah,
I
you're
guess
gonna test me on my spelling.
it's okay. And I can talk to Michelle's nodding her head over there. So it sounds like you know about that. You can help me with that. Okay. I'm like, my ears just perk up when I hear like
little.
menopausal women and their needs. I'm like, wait, that's me.
So you have Next Level, right? The book?
Yes, I have a book.
It talks about that, those in there.
Okay. Okay, I can look it up then.
But yes,
Yeah, it should be in there.
yeah.
Okay.
In there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else have specific questions?
I was just curious about heart rate versus watts. Is there one better measurement than the other that gives you more information?
Well, I tend to coach primarily, you know, if the athlete does not have a power meter, obviously we go off heart rate. You can, you know, set a specific power or watt prescription for an athlete, because the problem with heart rate is dehydration, heat, and lack of nutrition. You're going to see a cardiac drift. So you're going to struggle to keep that heart rate down if you get to the end of a 4-hour ride and you're depleted in all three of those. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, and I can expand just a little bit. You know, I think heart rate, the other thing keeping in mind is, well, then if you go to altitude, like especially extreme altitude, and you have a power prescription, you cannot use that, right? You've got to drop the power watts and make sure the heart rate's adjusted to that. So it's ideal if you have both. Again, I think it's just one of those things out of habit. It's almost hard for me not to train with watts, but if I don't have, if something happens with my bike, I can go off heart rate. I just don't like to, because I'm so connected with my watts, but I do have an idea of those heart rate zones. So as the athlete gets more and more experienced, they'll know if, their bike computer or something doesn't work. And that's a very, very good skill as well, because if they get to a race and something happens, they also need to have, their awareness of where they're at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I would agree, Liza. I think that cross-referencing is really important between those two things, because just for exactly what you said, in terms of if an athlete is dehydrated and underfueled and they're getting that cardiac drift, then they probably don't need to be trying to push the watts that they're prescribed to push, because they're already at a deficit. So yeah. So if you have those two kind of cross-referencing each other, then you can go, oh my gosh, well, my heart rate's not where it should be for this wattage range. So I need to something needs to change here. So yeah, that's good. Good question. Anybody else?
Do you have advice about setting power zones on a trainer? Because I'm struggling to figure out, it's been several years since I've done a triathlon. I'm struggling to find my power zones. I feel like I'm working really hard, but my heart rate is down. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? Where is the right zone?
So the nice thing about all these software programs is usually within they have a custom workout that's an FTP test. And as a coach on Training Peaks, I have 3 different FTP tests that I like to give my athlete. There's the typical 20 minutes, but then there's some other ones that have like 2 8-minute efforts or some max 3-minute efforts. So doing at least one of those on the trainer. Now, again, it's going to be different than it may be on the road outside. There's also a huge recommendation, and I agree with, is having 1, if not 2 fans. So interestingly enough, I think it was Sunday morning, I was going through a couple of athlete files, and I think I had 2 or 3 athletes cramp on their trainer rides. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? And they're not super long, but you're sweating usually a lot more than you maybe outside. One person also, she was in her basement, she had no fan, and it was 72 degrees down there. I'm like, that's way too hot. I get hot at 66. So, there's some people that do it in their garage, so it's already cold in there, but I do an FTP test, make sure you've got a fan, you're well hydrated and also well fueled either the morning and or the night before. Yeah.
Good. We got about 6 minutes, 7 minutes left. A little bit more. We're going to try to keep these pretty close to an hour. So anybody else has other questions, bring them on.
I have a question in general about tires. Do they make a lot of difference in a race? There's better tires than others, or do you need to change tires according to the course?
Oh, changing tires according to the course. I would leave that up to a pro mechanic. However, in terms of that's specific, I tend to use I tend to race on the same tires. Just because I like them. There's also the ease of changing them if I have a flat. In Boise, of course, with goat heads and you're training, I'd probably train on a little bit heavier tire. I, usually will have those on for training, and they, I'll wear them out. But then my race tires, I leave them, and I think I've got Vittoria courses Graphene 2.0, and I just like the way they roll, and I've had really good success on them. Yeah, in terms of other specific brands, you know, and those are kind of expensive. They're $50 to $60 a tire. So there is that. There used to be Specialized has had some really lightweight tires, but again, I would rather have mine be a little bit more beefy and not get the flat. And I also like to run tubeless if I can. So yeah.
Okay.
That's,
And
that's
tire
what I was
pressure?
gonna- I was gonna ask you what your thoughts were on tubeless, because like for me, like getting arthritis and stuff, it's like terrorizes me now to think about getting a flat. So tubeless, like on a race day, is just so comforting. But you like that?
Yeah, and actually I'm going to go back real quick. Tire
Okay.
pressure changed over the decades. So I think back 20 years ago, we used to pump our tires up to 100, 105. I don't know, maybe even 110. And now it's like 80, 85. I mean, if it's high, it's maybe 90, but especially if it's tubeless, it only needs to be about 80. And Cherie, definitely, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, and and actually one set of my wheels, I sort of make sure I'm riding with someone because I don't know if I could change it on my own. So I would 100% get your bike set up tubeless. It's just, you can just, you know, set it and forget it type thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Those are all good. I love the interaction, guys. Good job. So who's the phone number person down there? I don't know who that is. We don't know.
Hi, this is Kelly. This is
Oh.
Kelly Yost.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Nice. I didn't know who you were, so curious.
Yeah,
curious
sorry,
who-
I wasn't able to get in on the app on my phone, so I was like, well, I'll just call in and listen. It was great, guys. Thank you.
No, it's perfect. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
And, you know, Michelle has my email, and I usually try to meet with her once a month. So I can put together maybe a more specific list of anything else aside from the trainers and the apps, or any follow-up questions you have. And if you get on Zwift, I will invite you to my Tuesday night ride. We also do core on Zoom afterwards, which is fun. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Very cool. And I have the recording. I will share that into Fitter, Stronger, Faster, the Facebook group. And if you would want, I don't know, like a link to it, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure how that works now. I can't remember how it works, but we can get you the recording if the Facebook group doesn't work. So
There you go.
and if you need Liza's contact information, Liza, do you want to throw that into your, maybe you already did, into the chat
You
there
did it here. Yeah.
real fast? That would be good. Then we have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything else, guys? Any other? I have one last question. Liza, what's your best cycling story?
Oh man. I mean, my best cycling story.
Yeah. Or your worst cycling story. Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
I've got a lot of very interesting ones from when I lived in Italy. You know, one of my favorite places that I traveled to and raced, and yeah, I won, I don't know if it was 2005, was a race in Okinawa. It was called Tour de Okinawa, Japan. And USA Cycling sent us there. And I will tell you a funny part about this. You know, for 5 days we got to eat sushi. It was like a sushi buffet. It was unlimited, like at the hotel. So that was fantastic. So I signed on for the next year for sure because of the sushi and, you know, the travel. But the next year when I went, the men's team, you know, they also had they had a full roster of 6 guys and they would only send 2 women over. The entire men's team missed the start. They did not get to race at all. And needless to say, that coach was fired. Fortunately, you know, our race was supposed to start after theirs, so we made it. But yeah, that was interesting. But I would say in general, you know, getting the opportunity to race the Giro in Italy 3 times, I got to do that 3 times in my career, was probably a huge highlight. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. That's cool. No, Liza's got great stories. If you ever sit down to coffee with her, she can tell you all kinds of stuff. Around the world on 2 wheels.
Oh yeah.
Super fun. All right, y'all. Unless there's any last little quick things, I think that's a wrap. Excellent first session. I'm super happy. Just real quick for next month, I'll be announcing that here in just a little bit, but I have Corey DuPont, who is a physical therapist. He's going to be coming in and chatting. So if you guys have specific physical therapy questions, pain management, recovery, rehab, he's a good one to sit in on. So he's a real dynamic too. So it'll be fun session. But thanks everybody for coming. And if you didn't get your questions answered, please, you can either reach out to Liza or to myself and I can get them to her too. So I appreciate your hour in this,
Awesome.
this
Thank
evening.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, Liza.
Thank
It was
you.
awesome.
Thank you, Liza.
Yep.
You bet.
Yep.
Good
Thanks
night.
for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.